So there is this secret running around in the valley that you're not hearing in other places, which is the very wealthy usually do embryo selection, and they do embryo selection based on the DNA. So they would choose based on intelligence. They would choose based on specific characteristics. And this is something you've been hearing for the last 6 months in the valley and so on. And I was actually surprised to learn about the new product from Nucleus, which is the Nucleus embryo, that you are allowing folks to do this en masse. So you are allowing everyone to choose and select embryos. So first of all, how did you think of the idea to get this product out?
So it's interesting with Nucleus embryo, and just to give people some context here, people who undergo IVF, they get a couple usually viable embryos, right? Embryo is the beginning of humans, right? We all come from an embryo. We all come from a sperm and an egg from, mom and dad. And basically you have a couple embryos, and usually today people will implant one of these embryos randomly. So let's say you have 2 or 3 embryos. You would say, oh, I don't really know what the difference between they are. I'm just going to pick it randomly. And the beauty of a thing like Nucleus embryo is that now we give you information on each of the embryos, so you can see everything from its height to, disease. But before I talk more about Nucleus embryo, let me take a step back and sort of connect your question to what I was just saying, which is the fact that one time, and this is a crazy story, but one time I was, sitting in my office, and I get an email from someone, and the email says, hey, I have 10 DNA files. Because again, remember, DNA now is just a string, right? I have 10 DNA files. Can you analyze it for me? And of course, you're the founder CEO of a genetics company. You think to yourself, someone can only have 1 DNA file, right? Like, that doesn't really make sense. Why do you have 10 DNA files? And he says, oh, there are 10 DNA files because they're embryos. Can you analyze them for me? And it's actually a great lesson, and it's kind of a classic startup thing where, I really believe, again, on this application layer, this idea that, like, it doesn't matter where the DNA, that DNA comes from. Like, fundamentally, the models that you use to analyze embryos, they come from adults, obviously, right? Because you need to basically see, hey, if these adults have this specific phenotype, which genetic markers are disproportionately associated. And so I remember what we did was, and this is, again, a great lesson for startups in general, which is we served this customer. We gave him some disease analyses specifically. And I remember thinking to myself, well, if you're building an application layer for DNA, if you look at a DNA file of an embryo and a DNA file of an adult, they're identical. And so I always